the Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Today's edition of the Spot Track Podcast is presented by Authentic Audio Productions, providing a personalized, full-service audio solution for you or your company. No matter how big or small, create custom content, use professional recording tools, and have it all done for you. It's a one-stop shop. You focus on the business, let them focus on the audio production of your podcast. Visit AuthenticAudioPro.com. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Monday, September 9th. We are 95% through week one of the NFL. We are 100% through week two of college football. Both had massive storylines, but as the Cowboys will do, Jerry Jones hijacked the start of week one yesterday, announcing a massive, necessary, undeterred contract extension for quarterback Dak Prescott just hours before week one kicked off. It's a 4-year, $240 million extension with $231 million of practical guarantees. There's an $80 million signing bonus. This thing runs through 2028. I don't know what else to tell you. We'll get the guts soon. The guts are going to be gaudy. It's front loaded. It's cash heavy. It's historic in every sense of the word outside of the percent of AAV. And we told you this for a while. 60 was always going to be the number. But if it was going to be the top of the market, based on where the salary cap is now, 63 is actually the cap adjusted top of the market. So in a sense, there's a little bit of value here. And I realize that's crazy because 4 for 240 and basically 90% of that fully guaranteed are insane numbers. But this is what happens when you wait, when you stay small, when you try to bully ball situations. And unfortunately, unless they say something out loud, this is what we have to believe is happening with the Dallas Cowboys and their negotiations, because all of them come down to the wire and all of them end up being unbelievably player friendly, which is great. I'm all for players getting paid and maximizing and pushing the envelope and keeping the train moving. And that's exactly what Dak Prescott has done now twice in the past 3 seasons. He did it when it was 4 for 160 and 40 was the number and nobody believed he'd get the 40. He got the 40. And now just 4 seasons later, nobody believed he'd get the 60 and he got the 60. And not only did he get the 60, but he's about to walk into about $81.5 million this season alone, thanks to the signing bonus and minimum salary that's coming in this contract. He's already earned 5, by the way. So we can make it $86 million for 2024 because they already did a cap conversion on some of his base salary just to get them through the offseason. So that's what we're dealing with right now. We don't yet have the structure. I just checked our services this morning. We will get that. We will have full breakdowns. There's plenty more to talk about because the $231 million guaranteed is no accident. All right. That is the top of the market. And it usurps Deshaun Watson's contract, which was, of course, the 5 for 230 fully guaranteed after loads of draft picks and a 3-team bidding war for his services just 3 seasons ago. We've had Deshaun Watson conversations before. There's plenty of other non-football conversations to have about him. But if we're going to overreact about anything in week one, I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to use him as the overreaction. And here's why. And I tweeted it, and I'm sure the comments are ugly, and I never look, but I'm sure that the backlash from Cleveland fans or from people that don't want to think about things after week one are all built in there. But there's $138 million left in this contract. And generally speaking, with basically every other player in the league, every other player in the history of the league, tell me where the loopholes are. Tell me what they can do to make this easier. I don't have that for you here, okay? Because he's not tradable right now without a massive addition of draft picks to go along with that trade. The dead cap after 2024 for Deshaun Watson is $172 million plus. That's what we're dealing with here. So there's a couple things to discuss. There's the numbers out loud. All right, 3 for 138, including this current season, which we're 1/18 through now. If you want to move on from him in any capacity, it's going to be the biggest dead cap hit in the history of football, even if you go to trade him, because they've restructured this contract now multiple times. And I think that's the one thing looming over this right now. And it's the one thing I hope plenty of users that saw my tweet and decided to respond were reacting to. Because there's nothing that can be done about this contract. It was set in stone on, March of 2022, March 18th, 2022, 5 for 230, fully guaranteed, no loopholes. Why did Cleveland feel the need at the final hour to convert $45 million of this upcoming base salary into signing bonus? Why did they have to do it? I know why they thought they had to do it. All right. There was some operating room. There was a Brandon Ayuk situation that maybe they were getting ready for. I don't believe that to be true, especially now knowing that it sure seems like Pittsburgh was the team. And Jake Glazer yesterday on Fox basically broke down the fact that Pittsburgh thought they were getting Brandon Ayuk about an hour before Ayuk's extension in San Francisco was announced. Okay. So it doesn't seem like Cleveland was really close to needing to fit in $14 million from Brandon Ayuk. And this was the team basically flush with cap space all offseason. So why did they feel the need to roll it into next season? Because that's what they did here. All right. They amped up $45 million into the next 4 seasons, 2 real, 2 void. That just didn't have to be there. Is he still an okay player? Yes. Are we overreacting a little bit? Yes. They're missing 2 starting linemen. They're missing Nick Chubb. The Dallas defense is absurdly good when healthy. All of those things are true about week 1. There's plenty of time for them to turn a corner, and there were moments last season when Deshaun Watson looked okay in this offense. But he's tiny, and he's not Superman anymore. And he's 29 going on 30, and he has multiple injuries. And there's just a lot to deal with. All right? The point is this. I'm not here to analyze football for you. All right? You've got plenty of other channels to get that from. But I have to look at the football side of things in congruence with the contract side of things. And this is one of those things that just hasn't added up, and you're waiting for the moment where it starts to flatten out a little bit, and it's only getting worse. It's only becoming more uphill. And the conversion they did on August 29th, 20 days ago, just feels like an added layer that didn't need to be put to this. Because every single time he looks like he did yesterday. And I think that's going to be probably half of the games, unfortunately. Maybe even less if he's injured. The 172 of dead cap sitting in 2025 is going to become brighter and brighter and brighter because there's just no way out of that. And it's a $73 million active cap hit next year, by the way, because of the conversions. So not only are you going to have to keep them, you're going to have to convert next year's salary too. And then you'll be in a 1 for 46 in 2026, fully guaranteed, with well over $100 million of dead cap. And that's probably when, if everything stays the same or maybe even gets worse, that's probably when something comes to a head. And there's no doubt in my mind, as it currently stands, that the Cleveland Browns are setting themselves up to take on the largest dead cap hit in the history of football. And that's on the heels of Russell Wilson accounting for, 82 over the next 2 seasons? I'm not saying this isn't going to become common, because I think it is. Because you're just not able to stay within a situation at the quarterback position that isn't working for really more than a year. And they've kind of dragged this thing out for 2 years now, and this is year 3, and it's starting to look like the other 2 years quite a bit, unfortunately, at least out of the gate. $85 million of dead cap for Russell Wilson this and next year combined. That's the leader in the clubhouse to beat right now. I don't think it'll happen this year. I don't think it'll happen next year. But I do think when we get to 2026 and there's 1 year remaining, Cleveland's just going to have to look around and say, forget it, we're done. Because that'll then be 4 full seasons of Deshaun Watson inside of this offense. The GM's going to be fired. The coach is going to be fired. You know how this goes. This is the position that weighs down or lifts up everybody else. And I just don't think he's that guy anymore. And it's unfortunate because he's had some unbelievably flashy moments, both in the NFL and certainly in college. But things appear to have caught up with him. We'll see. They've got time to get healthier. We'll see what happens around week 4, week 5, week 6, when really all the teams start to hit the ground running a little bit. But it just looked yesterday like he was outmatched, certainly by the defense, but also just by the speed of the game. And the contract says quite otherwise about their ability to move on from this or even change pace. What's probably going to happen at some point here, well before we talk about actually moving off of this contract, is he's just going to become the highest paid backup, right? Because you don't sit on your hands. You don't. If you want to keep your job in this league, from front office to coaching staff, you just bring the next man in. And you're probably getting screamed at by owners, right? That the guy you're paying a boatload every 2 weeks isn't doing a damn for you. But sometimes doing nothing is better than being out there and losing. So they did bulk up the quarterback position this offseason, and it was a warning sign to people like me in this, the numbers side of the game, that they were probably preparing themselves for this point, that if they have to sit Deshaun, they will, because the contract doesn't let them out. So get ready for Jameis. Get ready for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It's a possibility. It's certainly a possibility. But you want to keep coming to me with questions about this contract, I'm going to have the most boring answer in the world for you. Because unless he's tradable, there's simply no out. None. And what they did on August 29th with that $45 million conversion made things insurmountably worse for 2025 and 2026. To the point of where next year, it's just impossible. All right. They're not going to post June 1st a $173 million dead cap hit. And in 2026, it's going to be extremely painful, but it's probably going to be doable. And it's going to sink them for 2 seasons from a cap perspective. But that's what's coming. No way out. So we had a $231 million guarantee lock-in yesterday to take over this Deshaun Watson number in terms of the rankings. But unfortunately, I still think the conversation sits with Cleveland and Deshaun, because until it gains a little bit of momentum, and it's been really years coming in that regard, I just don't know where we go with this one. And, you're starting to see a lot of people tie this into the worst contract in history conversation. There's time. All right, we're not even halfway through this thing. Week 8 or week 9 of this season will officially be halfway through this contract. So let's at least let it get to that point and give Cleveland a half a season here to try to solve this thing. But I think after that point, you have my answer as to where this contract ranks. And the moment, really for the past couple of years, the discussion that players were having and agents were having about making the NFL eventually a fully guaranteed league, it's just dead in the water. It's gone. And this single contract has done that for us. Cousins didn't really help his cause, nor did it really matter with Cousins, because he was doing short, simple extensions that were easily fully guaranteed. But this one's the elephant in the room. Now, with that said, I'll bring it back to some positivity. We have to get a full look at this Dak contract. But for all intents and purposes, right, if we add 240 to 29, that's a 5-year, $269 million contract. That's what Dak is in right now. All right, he had a $29 million base salary that carried over here into 2024. I'm sure that was part of the signing bonus. Added on to the 240 over 4. 5 for 269. If there really is 231 of full guarantee, right? That doesn't include an injury guarantee at all. 231 of full guaranteed out of that 269. That's an 86% total value guarantee. That's a pretty damn good sign. All right. That's a pretty damn good sign. For the most part, we're seeing players' total contract, not just the extension, new money, new years, the total contract that they're under. We're seeing that number in the 50s and 60s of guarantees. So a 4-year contract's really a 2. A 5-year contract's really a 2.5. If this is truly an 86% total value guarantee, it's a major step forward. Is it sustainable? No. Because I also tweeted this week. There's not a player, certainly in the NFL, and maybe in professional sports, that had the leverage that Dak Prescott had. The alternative to Dak getting this deal was the Dallas Cowboys entering March without a quarterback. That's the alternative. And if you thought that the media was over preparing themselves with Dallas Cowboys talk for the past decade or 2 decades, can you imagine? March 12th, free agency coming. Dak Prescott hits the open market, and the Dallas Cowboys do not have a quarterback under contract. And they're drafting, 25th, 26th, because they're still a 13-win team and maybe a first or second round playoff team this year, which is what they probably should be on paper. That would be the story of all. It's part of the reason Dak had this leverage. Dak kept it short, as he did last time. He maximized basically every metric. And an 86% total value guarantee is exceptional, elite, historic. So, on the heels of Deshaun Watson and this disastrous 100% guarantee, we have a pretty damn good deal with a pretty damn good player and a pretty damn good team that has a chance to really usurp this conversation and really take it to the next level. I know Prescott has taken a lot of flack, certainly for his playoff stuff, and that's rightfully so. But he has recovered from major injury. He has handled the media about as good as you're going to do it in that Dallas Cowboys market. He's likable. He's affable. And he's damn good. Okay, this guy's an annual MVP candidate, runner-up last year. You can call him a regular season quarterback if you want. That's 80% of the season. Okay, so for well more than half of this conversation, of an annual output, he's one of the best players in the game. And now he has the best contract in the game. And all he has to do is win one. That's it. That's what we said about Deshaun Watson. If they win at any point in time during that contract, all of the draft picks, the guarantee, everything about the Deshaun Watson cloud, off-field stuff notwithstanding, would dissipate. Certainly with Cleveland fans, but I think sentiment across the league as a whole. That's all it would take for Cleveland. And it doesn't appear like that's going to be the case, at least not with Deshaun at the helm, at least not right now. I think Dak has a way better chance at this. And no, it's not a 100% guarantee, but at 86, pretty damn good. And you include what CD just got, which is 100, and what Micah's going to have to get, because man, did he look like the Micah Parsons of old yesterday. And you can understand this is going to be difficult to keep this band together. But if they can do this or next year, and kind of shock the world a little bit and bump around San Francisco and Detroit and all these other teams that are, essentially odds ranked higher than them, all they got to do is get it once. And Dak's complete monster changes and this contract and the weight that it's going to have on him, on Dallas, on the NFL, lessens dramatically. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. We see this in the NBA constantly. Guys get paid because getting paid is just what you do in that league. It's easier to have a transaction to deal with than have a free agent to deal with in that league. It always has been. It's a brilliant structure in that regard. And that's what the quarterback is becoming. For Jerry Jones, it was just easier from every standpoint, including PR and marketing, to have Dak Prescott under a contract in 2024. And if this is a situation that becomes a disaster for them, they're going to have to deal with that in 3 years, which is probably the initial soft cutoff. Well, that's where we are with Deshaun. We're in year 3. And it's still trending way downward, and there's 0 outs. We just need one of these massive contracts to lift up, and then the sky's going to be the limit because of international money and streaming money and gambling money. And you know that this league is about as healthy as any league in the entire world, maybe even at the top of that list. And I'm including the Premier League and all the world soccer leagues and all these other entities that exist right now. There may not be a more flourishing league than the NFL. The players know it. The agents know it. That's why 60 was always going to be the number. I don't think any of us, myself included, saw 231 being Dak's number, but it's pretty understandable when you put it into terms like I'm trying to do here for 30 minutes. It's pretty understandable. And now all these players and agents need is Dak Prescott to win the Super Bowl. And everything about this becomes norm. You bet on your quarterback, you build around him as quickly as possible, and you dampen the excitement and the concern and the risk of all the money you just had to throw into escrow with a trophy, with a parade, and with 15 years, essentially, of good clout to go with it. You win in Dallas, it's forever. So it's really funny that these two contracts are so equally aligned, that these two players played against each other yesterday, immediately after Dak's contract. And now we kind of have a fork in the road with Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson, essentially for the next 3 seasons. Certainly with Deshaun. With Dak's contract, I would assume 4 of the 6 are going to be fully guaranteed here. But that's TBD when the structure gets to us. All right, what else happened in the NFL? I'm gonna refrain from the Tyreek Hill, whatever that is. Another player who got an extension, maybe a sweeten the pot type extension this offseason. It's been a busy final push toward the regular season. The Bills locked in their right tackle, who provided them with, I think, 3 offsides calls in week 1. Pat Freiermuth is an interesting extension in Pittsburgh, a team that won in week 1 with Justin Fields at the helm, though I'm not sure Justin Fields had too much of an impact outside of some really nice scrambling. Freiermuth gets 4 for 48. We've seen 0 guarantees. Certainly don't have his breakdown yet. It's quite a bit more than we had him on an average basis. We had him as about a $9.5 to $10 million player. He just kind of really stepped back last year, and there were some injuries and things like that. I think he had a hamstring injury for about 4.5 weeks last year. This is a monster. And this is the type of player Pittsburgh likes to build their offense around. So nobody in football world is shocked that the Pittsburgh Steelers paid a tight end here, especially when you moved on from Deontay Johnson. That's not a contract you're going to have to address this offseason. You would have. You're probably going to pay George Pickens. I don't think there's a reason to let him walk, although Pittsburgh has been one of those teams that has gone back to the draft more than any other team with their weapons, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. They've paid the tight end here in Freiermuth. I assume Pickens is elite enough to where they will extend him probably after 2024. But if they don't have a handle on the quarterback situation, that may be off the table. You know, it may be a Justin Jefferson, Minnesota type situation where everybody's just got to wait around a little bit and see what the immediate future is going to look like before we make any strict business decisions. That didn't stop the Freiermuth contract. So we'll see what the guarantees look like here in about probably a few hours or so. We'll get a better handle on that. But just the overall $12.1 million ranks right up there with top 10 in terms of tight end pay, a metric that really needs to push forward. We got a little bump in the cornerbacks from Surtain last week. We could use a bump in the tight ends, and it's going to take a big year from Kyle Pitts, 2 really strong years from Sam Laporta, and then he'll be extension eligible after 2025. But it's kind of bleak right now in terms of where we are. Travis Kelce's sweeten the pot renegotiation is the current high at like 17 and change, but it's been 16 for quite a while here. So Freiermuth a little over 12 is, in the mix, but did nothing to make a dent on the overall landscape of the tight end money. But it's a good deal, nevertheless. Speaking of which, Jalen Ramsey, a player I don't think any of us had on the radar for needing new money, but the contract certainly allows for it. Miami's got their cap all over the place. They are a balancing, juggling act with this right now because of all the extensions. They did have some losses. They did have some void dead cap. They're kind of rising and falling every week with their balances. And it was just a good situation for them to take Ramsey, who had 2 years left, tack on 3 years, and allow them some flexibility with how they're going to use this, right? So he gets a little over $55 million fully guaranteed. He had no guarantees in this contract on his previous extension, which had void years and all that fun stuff built into it. So rather than have to deal with him after 2024, they do it now. They can move some things around. They can lower his cap hit this and next year, make sure that they've got their situation figured out there. And then 2026 and 7 might be some pain, but it's another $55 million plus for Jalen Ramsey, who is going to easily surpass all other cornerbacks in the history of football. Right now, of course, is Darrelle Revis as the highest paid cornerback in the history of the game. That's what this guarantee has done for him. And at age not yet 30, Miami's banking they can get 2 great years out of him still at just a little bit more than he was previously scheduled to earn on the contract that he just extended out of. So that one was interesting. We talked a little bit last week about the Trent Williams. There's nothing fancy about that structure now that we have that one locked in. It's exactly what you want it to be. It's a 2 for 48 with some per gamers built into that, as San Francisco will always do. So he'll probably make close to $50 million over the next 2 years. The big deal is he's making almost $28 million this year. That's a record for offensive linemen. That's a record for 35-year-olds, of course, in the NFL. And the 2 for 50 was enough for him. It was enough for him. They certainly moved some things around from the fluffy situation they had in 2026 on the previous contract. That's kind of still in play. They didn't really touch that at the end of the day. They were able to move some money around with signing bonuses and things like that just to sweeten his pot. So he was making 20. Now he's making 27 this year. He was making 23 next year. That's dropped to 22. But the overall landscape is a much better outlook for the next 2 seasons before he probably rides off into the sunset and right the can. I don't think anybody has a doubt in their mind about that one. Anybody left? Yeah, of course there's somebody left. It's the other conversation that everybody's been having because it comes with plenty of drama. Jamar Chase did show up yesterday, though the Bengals offense did not, against the Patriots, one of the surprises of week 1. And he has just decided he's going to play without a contract. If it looked like he wasn't the same old Jamar Chase, you got to remember he hasn't fully ramped up. He's been standing on sidelines for a while, working out on his own. The speed of the game will get you, as you know. So it'll take some time. But, the injury stuff's in the back of his mind. It's in the back of his agent's mind. It's there. This is a guy that knows over the next calendar year that there's 105, 115 million guaranteed sitting out there that he has not yet signed his name to. So there's plenty of time. We've seen plenty of players rip up a leg and come back and still get that money. And he's at a position that is certainly getting paid. Let's put it that way. But I wouldn't be shocked if the reaction to losing to New England week 1 is forget it. We're just going to pay this guy, get that part of our situation out of the way so we can move forward and go back to winning football games. I wouldn't be shocked if over the course of the next 48 hours, the Jamar Chase contract hits and it's massive. And by massive, I mean, it could surpass in some metrics Justin Jefferson. It could. I thought CeeDee Lamb should have. I really do. I believe that. And after watching him yesterday, I continue to believe that. I just think there are things he does across the middle of the field that Minnesota has not yet asked him to do, and he's been healthier than Justin Jefferson. Chase not necessarily has been, all right? A couple games missed in 2022, but the numbers are massive, okay? They're just massive. And if he's going to be your guy and T. Higgins is going to be the guy that walks away next year, as we've talked about before, you contain your year one cash with Jamar Chase and you make the year two cash massive so that the 2-year, 3-year payouts are right up there with Jefferson. You can pull back a little bit on the full guarantee. So if Jefferson gets 110, or you at the 108 mark or the 107 mark, that's going to get it done. It's going to get it done. So I would expect that the reaction to Cincinnati losing week 1 is it's time to pay Jamar Chase and stop having to answer those questions so that we can just get back to the 2024 regular season and moving forward with our lives from there. All right. We had a Jamal Murray extension in the NBA. Keith Smith's all over that. The Denver Nuggets cannot stop spending money on their core 5 or core 4, however you want to call it, despite a down year. We'll see what Keith thinks about that soon. We're going to have a nice little offseason wrap up with him, and certainly the Murray extension and some of these other ones. Rookie extensions are coming as we get to that October deadline here, and the regular season is coming. So plenty of good time to get back with him. We will shift our focus off the NFL soon because Major League Baseball playoffs are here. We'll have some end-of-year tax discussions with teams that were positive and negative in that regard. We'll talk about some free agents in Major League Baseball. We'll talk about some trade and extension candidates. But, for now, we've got our foot down on the NFL season and where we are with things. And unfortunately, that's the beast that kind of drives sports talk and sports business right now. So if you have questions, if you need some answers about anything, NFL related, any other sport related, certainly at Spot Trek on the X or Insta or Threads, or pretty much all of them are at Spot Trek, SPOTRAC. For Scott Allen, my name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Spot Trek Podcast.